Hey Mike, simple request from Squirrel Nation. How about the next time you come ripping through our forests on those noisy pieces of shit, you scatter a little trail mix for us, or maybe next time we go ninja squirrel on your ass.
Hello. So I have a 2022 Honda Rally CRF 300, and I went and got some new handlebars, some Oxford grips, and some Barkbusters. And I wanted to kind of go through some of the pitfalls of putting this stuff in. I watched a lot of YouTube videos, and I saw there was another really helpful YouTube video by a guy, I think out of Utah, High Desert Hills, something like that, where he does a really comprehensive walkthrough of some challenges that he faced when he did this. And what I want to do is sort of piggyback on that, share some of my observations, which are really similar to his, and then also talk a little bit about the Barkbusters, as I don't think he put those on his. So we'll go through piece by piece, and I'll start with the handlebars. So the handlebars I ended up getting are the ProTaper. I got the 7/8 inch, the CR high rise. And it was, I don't know if it was pretty straightforward. For me anyways, maybe for somebody more mechanically inclined, it might be a little bit easier than it was for me. Anyways, let me just talk about some of the things that I encountered when switching out the handlebars. So first of all, I wanted something with a little bit more of a rise, as I'm 6'1", and riding this bike, especially standing up, feels a little bit cramped, a little bit uncomfortable. And I think these accomplish that pretty well, although I haven't really taken it off-road yet. It's winter time and temperatures have not been very comfortable. Anyways, let me go through some of the steps here. So first of all, taking the old bars off. So there were some challenges involved for sure. So the first thing, what you need to do is, let me grab those old bars, hang on one second. So the old bars have these bar end weights on the end on either side of the handlebars. And you got to start by taking those out, which just looks like a Phillips screw in the end here. Where is it? There it is. And I saw some people had some challenges removing those as well, as did I. So fortunately, on the right-hand side, it came right out, no problem. So then this was off, and that allowed me access to just slide the throttle tube off. And I'll talk more about that here in just a second. The other side just kind of spun and spun and spun, and I really didn't want to waste any time trying to get it out because I really didn't need to. Because I was just going to take the grips. I've got new Oxford grips, and I was just going to cut those off anyways, so it didn't really matter. I didn't need to remove this to slide the grips off. Also, on the stock bars, there are these little holes down here on the underside, or somewhere near the underside, that there is a tab on your controls here. This component, there's a little metal tab that's going to grip, that's going to poke through into that hole to keep this secure. And I know there's a lot of discussion about this on YouTube. Just grind off the tab, some people suggest, and then use duct tape or something underneath this to secure it because they didn't want to drill into the handlebars. Same thing on this side over here. With this control, you're going to have a hole on the underside of the handlebar. There it is. So I didn't have any problem with drilling into the handlebars. I didn't think one little hole, or at least I thought it was going to be one little hole, was going to make a huge difference in the structural integrity of it, and you're not going to see it anyway. So I opted to not go the duct tape route or the grind off the tab route, and I opted to drill the holes out. So let me first talk about how I got the old bar off. So after I removed this weight on this side, then I went ahead, and all you have to do really is loosen up these controls on the throttle side. There's a couple screws in the back of this, and then this just kind of comes right off. And then you've got your mirror mounts here, which on the Rally also hold some hand guards and there's a little bracket that you have to take off for that on one of the sides. I think it's on the other side, on the left-hand side, to get to that. And you can remove that bracket unless you're going to reuse the hand guards. I did not, so I just got rid of it. So anyways, you just take these two screws off here for your mirror clamp assembly. And you probably want to remove the mirrors first. I did. There's lots of YouTube videos showing you how to do that. It's basically a 14mm spanner and two nuts here that you need to remove so you can unscrew the mirrors and get them out of your way. So once you take these off and you've loosened this, you don't have to, I've seen a lot of videos where people get in and they actually remove the cables in the throttle tube to get the throttle tube off. You don't need to do that. Let me talk about that here in just a minute. So then on the other side, same deal. You're going to want to remove these two bolts for your mirror assembly. And as I said before, I think this side has the handguard bracket on it that you need to take off as well. And then you've got a couple screws in here for your switch assembly as well. So you remove that. This kind of pops off into two pieces. And you kind of have to be careful and sort of slide it up over your turn signal indicator. It'll make sense once you take it apart. You kind of have to slide this part up over the switch here so you can remove that. So this will come off, this is off. So then my grips, like I said, what I did is I just cut them off. I just took a razor blade, cut them off. I wasn't going to reuse them. On this side, there wasn't a whole lot of glue, came off pretty easily. Throttle side, same deal, just took a razor blade, cut and removed them, and they came off fairly easily. Now my wife has a KLX 300. It was a complete nightmare to do the same thing, put Barkbusters on that, and to try to remove the grips. It's like they super glued every square inch of the underside of the grip. So I literally had to pull tiny little pieces and chunks off. It took me about 2 hours to just get that one grip off. So if you have a KLX or maybe some other kind of motorcycle, I would recommend maybe looking into just buying a throttle tube and just disposing of the whole thing. I think they're pretty inexpensive. But for this bike, it was pretty simple. Just a slit right down through the grip, and it peeled right off really easily. They weren't overzealous with the glue on the Rally, or probably on any of the CRF 300s. Then, so all the controls were off, dangling. Go ahead and loosen up the clamps. Here, you've got 4 bolts that hold your handlebars. So take those off, take these top clamps off here, and then your handlebar is basically free. So what you're going to want to do is, so everything will be off on this side over here. So then you can take it and slide your handlebar out to the left, and that will free up some room on the right hand side. So then you can just take your throttle tube and slide it right off as one complete piece. And like I said, then you don't have to disconnect any of the throttle cables or anything. I saw a video on YouTube where a guy was, he did not want to take the cables off as well, and he just tried to slide it to the right without removing the stuff on the left, and it looked like it was really tight and it didn't look like a great idea. Anyways, if you want to take the cables off your throttle tube, go for it. You could do it that way as well. Probably pretty simple. It's just another piece that you have to put together if you want to go that route. I did not have to. It worked real easily just to slide everything. Okay, then I got the new handlebar in, just reversed the procedure, slid it to the right, slid the throttle tube over top of the handlebar, and then loosely attached everything, the mirror assembly, the control assembly here, and the same thing on this side, attach the mirror assembly, control assembly. Now, the tricky part again was the holes to secure the control assemblies. I saw a rather genius idea on YouTube where somebody took some tape and put a couple of, just like a roll of blue painter's tape underneath this before putting it back on, then sliding it on in the position you want it, clamping it back down with the screws, and then you remove the screws and it'll leave a nice little indentation showing you exactly where to drill that hole. Well, that's all good, except I screwed it up the first time. So I put everything, kind of mocked everything back together, put my control assembly where I thought I wanted it on both sides, and got the little indentation. Everything was fantastic. Drilled the hole. I drilled the hole with the handlebars off, so I removed everything again. I just thought it was a little bit easier to do. Started with a small hole and then worked my way up to the size hole that is in the original stock tube. And thought that was great. Put everything back together, and then sat on the bike and realized I did a really piss poor job of placement of these control surfaces. If you look at it now, you've got your horn here. So you basically have three things. You've got your high-low beam, your horn, and then your turn signals down here. And it's kind of, I don't know, maybe it would be common sense for most people. It wasn't for me. But you probably want to line up that horn straight with the bars, or roughly straight with the bars. I did not. I had it down here further. Everything was tilted down. And I don't know what I was thinking there. Thought it was great. Drilled the hole, and then realized, oh, that's not where I really want it.
You are a bona fide moron.
So, same thing over here. The hole placement isn't perfect, although over here, sorry about the camera movement here, it's acceptable to me. It's still, I wish it had been spun up this way, a little bit more towards the top, and then again lining up the switch here a little bit more parallel with the handlebars, which I didn't. It's a little bit off. It's not bad, but I wished it had been up a little bit more. Anyways, so this one was acceptable. This side to me was not. So easy fix though, fortunately. The next day I came back out, pulled this off. All I had to do was take this off. This switch assembly here and the mirror. And then came in behind it, did the same thing, took a piece of tape, stuck it on there, pushed this together, screwed it together, showed me where the hole should have been, and then I went ahead and drilled that out and got it where I wanted it. It was maybe a 1/4 inch off from where it was before. So there's a couple holes here underneath here, but I'll never see them, and who cares. However, you don't have to drill all the way through, as I found out. I just kind of put an indentation in there, probably halfway or so, maybe a little bit more through the bar itself, and then it'll sit in the indentation, so you don't have to go all the way through with the hole. If you want to, obviously you can. I don't think it's going to make a huge difference. Okay, so then I got everything, put everything in place approximately where I wanted it. I think everything was fine, and then I had a bunch of things hitting my screen. So, but that was primarily with the Barkbusters. So let me not get ahead of myself here. Now, onto the Oxford heated grips. So now that I had the handlebars in place where I wanted them, the Oxford heated grips were much more straightforward. The only problem was with the heated grips, getting them on the handlebar was a nightmare. So, I know people suggest hairspray, air. None of those worked very well for me. In fact, none of them worked at all. These Oxford grips are really solid, and you're not going to get a lot of flex to them. And they're really tight over these handlebars. So what I did is I took a round file, sort of ground out the inside of the grip a little bit, and then some sandpaper, rolled it in a roll inside of the tube of the grip, and sanded, kept trying it, kept fitting it until I could squeeze it on there, and it took a brute amount of force, let me tell you. So eventually for this one I did use some hairspray, slid it on with force, and it worked okay. Make sure you have the position where you want it of the cord here for the heated grips so it doesn't impede your turn signal indicator. I had mine a little bit too close initially, but I was able to muscle it back down, and I like the position of that one. Okay, so that's this side. Oh boy, the throttle side was not so easy. So the throttle side, you've got the throttle tube to work with, and when you look at the throttle tube, it's going to have a ridge on the outer ring of it, a raised ridge. So you're not going to get the Oxford grip to go over that ridge. It's so tight to begin with that that added ridge just makes it impossible. There's also going to be a lot of textured little bumps all along the throttle tube. And those to me weren't a big problem. I know some people said they sanded those down. I did not. However, this ring of the throttle tube, the white ring all the way around, that I did file and sand down smooth with the rest of the surface, making it the same height as the rest of the surface of the throttle tube. So I had to sand that all down to be able to get the grips on there. And again, with the grip, file in the inside of it repeatedly, tried to get it on, didn't work, file, sand, and still was having a heck of a time. This time I said, screw it, I don't care about anything sticky. I'm getting some dish soap and really lubing it up. So I put dish soap on the inside of this, and it still wasn't easy, but I was able to finally slide that in place. I'm not worried about gluing these, the super glue that came with it. These things are on tight. They're not going anywhere. And then the added bonus is if I ever want to remove them, it's just easy. I'm just going to cut them. Nothing's going to be sticking them on. It'll be easy off. Now, as far as the control assembly, I first had it over here on the left mirror mount, which it seems like a lot of people did. I did not like it over there. It was hitting stuff. I did not like the position of it. It was really blocking the adjustment nuts for this mirror. So what I did is instead moved it to the right hand side, and there's a bracket that has behind it that you mount this to. It has a bit of a bend in it. You want to kind of straighten out that bracket so it fits, and it'll make sense if you have these grips that you're going to have to sort of change the shape of that bracket. It's real simple. Just put it in a vise and give it a good beat down, and it'll go where you want it to go. Also, I know there's some videos of people saying that these bolts, the holes on the bracket didn't line up perfectly and they had to do some grinding down to get that to work. I didn't notice that. They worked. They sort of form fit. They curve around the bar a little bit and they seem to fit just fine. And that's on there securely. The wiring, I just kind of ran down here. I don't know if you can see it. I just have a little bundle right here. I thought that was the best place to put it. I couldn't put it anywhere on the other side because the lengths of the wires weren't quite long enough. So it's kind of out of the way. I know it's a little bit unsightly. I might move it at some point, but it works for now. As far as the power, I just ran that down here and through these plastics to the battery, which is on the left side over here. So I just basically had to remove this panel, which is one little Allen key, I think 5 millimeter. Remove that. You can also take this one out, although you don't have to remove the whole panel. You can just kind of pull it forward and access the negative terminal of the battery. Your battery sits right here. Kind of odd. I'm used to having them under the seat, but for the Honda, maybe a lot of these bikes, it's not odd, but it was odd for me. So run the wire behind the plastics and then around up under the fairing and to the control module up there on the handlebars. All right, lastly was the Barkbuster installation. Really like the color match. That's my favorite part. Matches the Honda really nicely if you get the red and white. I got the variable, I think they're called VPN, variable position hand guards here. You can either take this off or slide it down. Not slide it down, but there's a couple other screw holes where you can set it a little bit lower. As far as the installation goes, make sure and get the Barkbusters specific for the Honda Rally. They make a set that is specific supposedly for this and hopefully will help with any fitment issues you might have. That's what I have, and you can look up on the Barkbuster site and see what specific item number that is. I got mine from Revzilla. I live in the US here, and they seem to fit okay. As far as pitfalls with the Barkbuster installation, with any Barkbusters you put on, I have found there's a lot of tweaking and adjustment you have to do until you find the perfect angle and fit. So you have these clamps that go on the handlebars, which have on this model this little, I don't know if you can see this here, this tube right here that goes into these little slots here that make it so you can rotate this. So it gives you a lot of different possibilities for having these fit. Then on the ends, I didn't have to do anything to the throttle tube as far as cutting it or shortening it or anything like that. They have these bar end weights on the end and this little sleeve that goes in behind that weight, and it makes contact with the handlebar, not the throttle tube. So still get a nice spin on the throttle and no issues there. Pretty simple. There's little, these are not, as I said, not my stock handlebars. If you use stock handlebars, you might have to do something, or you have to take the ends out. So inside of these stock handlebars, you have the bar end, but then you also have this threaded sleeve inside here, these bar end weights that go in there and that you can thread into. And if you use some kind of hand guards, I guess, but if you use the Barkbusters, you got to take them out according to their directions. So to take them out, I did not do that because I didn't use these handlebars. But you have these little holes on either end here, on the top and the bottom. If you can see that. Sorry about the poor camera work here. But you basically have to pry or push these holes in, and then it releases this inner weight here, the sleeve, and then you can pull that out, and then you'll have an empty handlebar tube. And that's what you need to fit the Barkbusters. Or you just get new handlebars that have the empty handlebar, so you don't have to worry about that. Okay, they make these little sleeves that go inside of your handlebars. There are two little sleeves for different sizes. You'll just remove, I think the bigger one won't fit. You'll notice when you try to put it on, in the directions they have one sleeve going into another sleeve, the bigger one over the smaller one, and you won't even be able to slide it into the handlebar. It's too big, the diameter is too big. So you'll just pull that big sleeve off. You don't need that one. And then the smaller one will fit right in there, and then you can tighten it up slowly. And again, make sure you have it in positions that you like before you torque everything down. The other problem I ran into with the Barkbuster specifically, and even where I placed the mirrors, was hitting the fairing, hitting the windscreen on the rally. So at full turn, if I turn this, I had to kind of finagle the mirrors a little bit. And right now it's not hitting that, which is nice. But I do have this SRC USB port connector that goes into the rally tower here. And it hits that and kind of pushes it behind the screen, but it's flexible, it moves. So it's not a big deal. It's not going to break anything. It just kind of rubs up against that at full turn. I'm not hugely concerned with that on this side. And again, you can just kind of bend that back and all is well. On the other side, when I turn, what I'm hitting, I don't know if you can see this, let me walk around here. The Barkbuster, it does hit the screen right here at full turn, but barely. And it's plastic, it's flexible. I guess if you dump the bike really hard and the handlebar comes whipping around this way, I guess there's a chance it could crack that, but hopefully not. But there's really nothing I can do to alleviate that. The other problem I had with the Barkbusters, and I'm not sure why that is, I tried rearranging things as best I could, is on this side, on the brake side, the throttle side, there's a lot of clearance here between the lever and the Barkbuster, no problem at all. On this side, around here, I don't know if you can see that from the top. The actual end of the lever is pretty close to the Barkbuster plastic cover and the metal ring here. It's not bad. I can still get my hand in there, but when you have thick gloves on, you're kind of always hitting this. And I know you're supposed to ride with, just using a finger or two on the clutch. And if you do that, you're probably going to be fine. And even with gloves, it's fine. It just is weird, and maybe it's just going to take some getting used to, that you've got something right there that you're kind of going to hit with your hand when you go to grab the clutch. Not a huge issue, just something little. And I know they make adjustable levers that I think you can bring the position in a little bit more, and that might make this a little bit better. But I'm going to try and ride like this, and I'll probably get used to it. It's probably not a big deal at all. And I know the other thing that was concerning was with the handlebars is, will the cables all reach once you get some different handlebars? And I know a lot of people put risers on these bikes. I did not put risers on yet because I wanted to see how the handlebars would fit. Again, these are the CR high bends from ProTaper. And right now, the cables, I don't notice any difference really with stock. Everything seems fine and nothing is really binding, or there is a little bit of binding here with the Barkbuster. You notice right behind this brake master cylinder here, the throttle cables, if you can see that or not, these hit the Barkbuster, but there's also this little recess in the Barkbuster itself right there where these just kind of fit naturally. It's like they made it for that reason. But they kind of bind up there a little bit. Not bad at all, though. I don't think it's going to be any issue. Okay? But anyways, the rest of the cables all seem fine. Nothing is stretched overly. And I have these rotated really far forward to give me a little bit more height and a little bit more room in the cockpit. As I said before, standing did not feel comfortable to me. It feels a lot more comfortable now. And risers, I might still do. I'm going to ride for a while and see how it goes. And if I still want a little more height, I think I could probably get away with another inch or so and not run into any issues. With my throttle cables, and they're kind of awkward position. This is again due to my stupid positioning of this control. Again, this is supposed to be rotated down a little bit more. My throttle cables are a little bit high. And if this control surface were rotated down where it should be, probably would not be having some of these issues that I'm having with the binding here. Maybe not, maybe it would all be the same, but either way, it's not a big deal. It's not any, I don't think it's dangerously tight or anything's going to screw up on it. Everything feels pretty loose and pretty comfortable. So hopefully that made sense. And if you decide to go this route, hopefully it'll work for you. And watching a lot of these YouTube videos is invaluable. Really get some good tips on what you might run into. And hopefully, some of these can help some people along the way. Again, I haven't really ridden with this stuff yet. I will take it for a ride here a little bit later and then add a little bit more to this video maybe and see how this is working. All right, well, just took it for a ride just to test everything out. It's pretty cold here. Temperatures in the teens Fahrenheit. Roads are a little slick. I've got no interest in going for a longer ride today. Wait till things warm up a little bit. But I can say the heated grips felt great in the limited time that I had them on. You can certainly feel them. They certainly keep your hands warm. I stood up on the bike to get a feel for what that would be like off-road. It feels way better. Gives me a lot more room. I feel a little bit more comfortable, not so cramped. I don't know about the bar risers yet. I don't know if I'm going to go that route. Right now I'm just going to try to run these this spring, see how it goes as is, and we'll go from there. The Barkbusters, as I said, feels a little bit funny on your clutch hand, having that obstruction in the way, but it's not any big deal at all. I'm sure I'll get used to it after 5 minutes of riding. And so everything turned out great, ish. There were some challenges on the way, some things I certainly wish I had done differently.
You are a bona fide moron.
But now I know. So if I was going to do it again, I'd know what to do. And hopefully if you guys have any questions, you can leave questions in the comments and I can get back to you. Okay, good luck. Hope your rides are fantastic. Have a wonderful time, and y'all take care of yourselves.